Yes. Okay. So, welcome everybody. Welcome on behalf of FIWARE Foundation and IUDX. My name is Alberto Abella, and today with my colleague Abhay Sharma, we'll be presenting the enabling smart cities faster adaptation with smart data models. A joint presentation between the FIWARE Foundation and the UDX initiative. So the presentation will have, let's say, two main parts. One part regarding the strategic alliance between our two organizations, and a more technical part dedicated to the implications and to the updates on the Smart Data Models Initiative and how this is going to be used. And of course, a very interesting part about the practical use in the Smart Cities domain, which will be presented by Abhay. So it will take us a bit less than an hour, hopefully. So, and you can use the chat for making any questions because the speakers will be able to see it while we are talking. We'll do our best for starting for answering your questions. So first of all, let's point out why it's relevant to have shared data models for the industry and for the citizens in the context of the smart cities. So I have to introduce that the FIWARE platform is something which is created for supporting the smart digital life. So building around open standards, this is a key element that we are open initiatives, okay? And for managing context and digital twin data. So we are trying to use the data for improving the management of many things, and specifically of the smart cities into our society. And of course, the management of these smart cities is no longer a thing of just the smart city, but as I'm describing in this slide, we are interacting with many other domains. It is true that usually our data sources for managing the smart city are coming from the information like from our smart buildings, of our transport systems, about the mobility, the bus stations, all the public transport and so on, or about the management of the city infrastructures, the street lights, the roads, you can imagine that belongs to the city. But it is also true that for managing this, we are increasingly requiring of data sources which are not specifically from the domain of the smart cities, like meteo information, environmental information, energy consumption of all infrastructures. Of course, we are extending all of our. We are starting to include the use of vehicles and without the proper water management or logistics and so on. So managing a city in these current days, it's a challenge of the integration of the data sources, not only coming from our domain, but from many other different data sources. So, and in order to assess the economic impact, I'm glad to tell you that according to Gartner, the IT sector is going to recover subsectors even 2019. So, of course, the virus crisis, it has a huge drop, but even with this drop, you can see that comparing the figures of 2021, the expectations, with the actual figures of 2019, we are going to, in the case of data centers and enterprise software, which is the software with which we are growing, we are going to keep growing beyond what it was the results of 2019. So we are expecting to keep this, and of course, this sector is going to grow much intensely than the average economy. So it's a good sector to invest and to be interested, because increasingly there is a demand for this kind of services. So, and the other digital challenge is that, yeah, we have to integrate very heterogeneous data sources coming from very different domains. Okay, but the point is not only to do the integration for the very first day, but what is going to happen across the different months and years that we are managing. So, of course, can we trust in a technology provider for achieving all of this? What if this technology provider is not capable of following the path of innovation? Apart, if we could afford some technology vendor lock-in, okay? Or what if we have to wait for standardization to be available? We'll emphasize this. And of course, you have to integrate multiple provider systems. Don't we need a new approach? And the answer for this question is yes. Yes, we need a new approach in which there are many things that we already know how to tackle with, and there are some others which are open challenges that we are working on tackling. So first, let me introduce what are the principles for an effective data reuse or for sharing data across the ecosystem. And let me emphasize that sharing data is which enables the creation of new services. These new services is what makes the citizen happy, okay? So first of all, in order to share our data, if we want to share it, is to have a license. So a legal framework for sharing this data. Creative Commons is an option, but there are many different licenses. Of course, you need also to have an agreement regarding the access mechanism and the technical format, which is something that I'll explain NGSI-LD is covering perfectly. And then once you agree on the mechanism of access and the technical format, you have to agree on the contents, what's inside. And this is something which the Smart Data Models Initiative provides directly. So standardized data models, geolocation, how to geolocate data, what update frequency you can have. Okay, this is something which is already covered. But it is also true that you need something else. And these 8 dimensions are the result of a survey on the experts on data sharing. And we also need the prestige of the publisher and the communication availability. And the Smart Data Models Initiative provides some facilities on that point. So with this, what we are showing is that we are helping you, wherever your initiative is, to help you to share data if sharing data is your goal. Okay, let me just, I'm not going to go through all this slide, but just let me remark one thing, which is the classic standardization mechanisms done by the standardization bodies are not capable to deal with the market demands in terms of timing. So the usual review period for a standard is 4 years. 4 years in terms of the data market is an eternity. So you cannot wait 4 years for having a standardization and then to think about if this is what you really need. What we provide in the Smart Data Models Initiative is a de facto standardization in which we are capable of providing you with solutions from 5 to 50 times quicker than the classic standardization. What we mean is that we are not replacing the classic standardization, but it's something which complements while there is not an agreed standardization between the sector. Because otherwise what is happening in the market is that there are some standards, de facto standards, or dispersion of the data formats or the semantics, which is costing us a huge amount of data, a huge amount of time, of integration, and wasted resources because of the lack of an agreement. Okay, and now let's move on into what is the summary of the agreement between FIWARE Foundation and IUDX initiative. So first of all, let me point out what are the missions of our organizations in terms of IUDX is to leverage data and to promote data sharing via a robust platform. I'm not going to read everything, but you can see that the goal is to provide usefulness for the citizens and improve the city infrastructure and the services. So we are making the welfare of the citizens much better. And on the other hand, FIWARE Foundation mission is to develop an open and sustainable ecosystem around, this is quite important, public, royalty-free, and implementation-driven software. Okay, so we are providing something which is open. It's open for all and forever, okay, and free. And we are helping on creating an ecosystem of developers around these standards. And together, we have reached an agreement about 3 pillars. The first pillar of these 3 is that the resource server of the IUDX, which is providing solutions for the smart cities in India. And you'll see by the end of the presentation, a dedicated presentation about what is going on. It will be based on NGSI-LD standard, okay? And NGSI-LD standard is the core of the API used by the applications and for the integration of the FIWARE enablers. So we are sharing the standard for the implementation of these services across the smart cities. So the second pillar is that the IUDX will join the steering board of the Smart Data Models Initiative at the same level of FIWARE Foundation and at the same level of TM Forum. Okay, they will use the Smart Data Models and they contribute with the data models that they need. And they, of course, they have a leading role into the smart cities domain. Let me remind you that the smart cities, the smart data models have several domains, and regarding the question, is it possible to access the recording of this meeting? Yes, it will be available in the FIWARE channel. Thank you, Sebastian. Regarding the FIWARE contribution, we will provide support for the incorporation of these new data models and provide an enhancement to the existing data models contributed by IUDX, and of course, will help them into the definition of the data models which are required for providing the IUDX services. And the third element is that we are going to share the platform, and if depending on the on the will of IUDX, let me drink a bit. These elements could be contributed as FIWARE generic enablers. What does it mean? It means that it's not only a solution for the Indian smart cities, but it could be promoted across all the world, which increases the ecosystem of developers around this solution, making even more affordable and more powerful this solution for everybody, not only for IUDX, but for everybody collaborating. And of course, we will provide support for this solution to become generic enablers and to be a part of the FIWARE catalog. And of course, as we always do with all of our components, we will help to disseminate among every community members of the FIWARE community and beyond. Okay. With this, what we are achieving is a quite endorsement of this standard, not only into the standard and industry bodies. Let me emphasize that NGSI-LD is a standard which is currently being developed on daily basis by ETSI. ETSI is a standardization body, okay, and you can contribute to this standard whenever you want. It is also true that this standard is taking elements of the GSMA reference architecture for IoT big data ecosystem, and you can see that in the smart data models there are lots of references to the elements of GSMA. It is also true that this standard, this approach, is endorsed by TM Forum, okay, which is one of the main associations in the telco sector. And in terms of public bodies, of course, this context broker is a building block endorsed by the Connected European Facility, and it's a recommendation whenever you are going to implement a cross-country service in Europe. And with this, we also extend this this collaboration to a very different area, which is India, which is a subcontinent, okay? And then we will join together, sharing the standard and making these communities much more efficient in terms of collaboration, okay? And of course, the fact that the IUDX joins the Smart Data Models Initiative is going to play a leading role in the definition of new data models for smart cities. Okay, and this is the strategic part. And now let's go into the introduction to the Smart Data Models Initiative, which are several updates. First of all, let me introduce, for those of you who are not familiar, the 10 principles around the Smart Data Models Initiative. First of all is that it's a community site. It's quite decentralized, and therefore there are different domains which are supported by different organizations. We are doing IUDX is one of them, but there are many others depending on the domain. We provide coherence and consistency between the data models, making that if you are taking, as explained at the very beginning, you need to integrate weather information with your smart city information or water management information with your smart city and so on, that the data models are consistent. And whenever you call a property, I mean, an example, temperature, a temperature means the same for the weather, it means the same for the smart city, making this possible, a seamless connection between the elements that you have in one domain within the other. Okay, of course, we are doing into an agile standardization, and I want to pay more attention to this. And what we want to do is to provide extended interoperability between the different domains. And of course, let me emphasize with an open licensing which entitles the users to use the data models as much as they can, to modify and to adapt to their possibilities, and to share this modification with the community or with others, okay? And the other differential fact is that we are not creating standards. We are not doing just from our desk and then sharing with the community. We are providing standards which are already being tested into the real scenario. And we have the experience of what is happening when you are using these kind of things within the FIWARE platform. We are using Git as the platform for maintaining the different versions, which is a clear advantage because of its flexibility and powerful. And we use the consensus as main decision method regarding the extension of the creation of new data models. And last but not least, what we do is we are not reinventing the wheel whenever possible. So if there is not if there is a regulation adopted and open, what we do is just to translate this regulation into smart data models that are easy to be used within the FIWARE platform with the NGSI-LD standard. So we are not creating brand new things if it is not possible. We are trying to go for the last mile of the standards. Several cases in different domains, there are standards which are adopted by the industry, but the last mile that I mean is that, yeah, the standard is defining this term, but we don't have a payload for put into my system. We are providing this last mile, defining the data model, defining the type of the data, defining the structure that you have to use it, okay? So in that sense, what we provide is an extended life for these standards which are already being adopted by the industry and providing actual interoperability between the systems that you're using. Summarizing these principles in 4 goals, what we want to do is just, it will be easy to contribute. In fact, we are currently in the process of reducing the contribution from 2 files to just 1 single file, and enabling the users to self-check if they are providing the right standards. It's to increase the easy of use of these standards, and we are creating multi-language specifications. Okay, the official language is English, but now we are into several different languages, and hopefully we'll have many others soon. Okay, our efficient approach is that we are automating everything as much as we can in order to allow the last principle is to be able to scale up. Okay, if we're not capable of scaling up, if we trust on manual processes, we won't provide we won't provide something which is useful for the users, and this is our very first goal. So what is a data model made of? So 3 elements. The first element is a specification, so a written document that anybody, independently of his or her technical knowledge, is capable to understand. Okay. And now, as I was explaining, it will be not only the official definition in English, but also in some other languages. It is drafted in Spanish and French, and it's coming the German, the Japanese, and the Chinese translations, and hopefully in a coming future, some others. A JSON schema, which is capable of validating if a payload is compliant with the standard. So we can make the difference between, oh, if this information that you are sharing is compliant with the standard or no, and in an automatic way, you can do it. And for minimum examples of the different versions. Let me remind you that it is true that NGSI-LD is the actual version of the platform, but it is also true that we have a former version, NGSI v2, and for every of these versions, there are 2 formats available, and we provide an example of each of one. So by the end, 2 versions, 2 formats each, so 4 examples, and you have all this. Let me just show how a specification is. It includes just the name. It includes also the main description, the list of properties across the data model. It has a complete, I cannot show you, but I'll do later, with the technical specification, with a very description of the technicalities of every property, and you have the examples embedded and some customized elements if you wish to do it. So this is the specification. A data model is a JSON schema. If you are familiar with this way of coding, is quite simple. The only point that we want to remark is that we are including the descriptions of the different elements in the JSON schema for making possible to automate everything and to scale up the initiative. And last but not least is the data model examples, which helps you to understand what all this is about and to give you an example for testing purposes. This is the structure of the initiative. Currently, there are an umbrella repository in which there are the shared elements, and there are many domains below. One of these are smart cities, and below these domains there are subjects. Subjects are groups of data models that can usually they belong only to one domain, but in some cases they can belong to several. And you are going to understand quite well with an example, like weather is relevant, of course, for smart cities, but this is also relevant for the agri-food sector. It's also relevant for the environmental sector and for energy and so on. So some of these subjects, which are groups of data models, can belong to several domains. And if we update in this subject something, it is automatically shared for all the domains. So we are working once and providing something useful for several domains. So it's quite effective in that sense. How can you access these data models? There are 2 main sites. One is on GitHub, which is the technical part, more focused on developers, and there is also a front end with the Smart Data Models initiative that we are going to visit just in a moment. Okay, and let me just explain the new contribution mechanisms. It's something which is rather new. It's only 2 weeks, and we are in the process of full migration. So we have, let's say, the JSON schema, and this JSON schema generates automatically the specification, which is by the end translated into the different languages. And this schema also is validating the examples provided. And in the coming future, you will have a data source with random payloads for testing purposes, not just for static examples, but a full-fledged of examples that whenever you go against a URL, you can grab a payload according to this standard. just for testing purposes. This is something which is in the queue, and this approach allows us to eliminate any inconsistencies between the validation mechanism of the standard and the written description. So there is only one place in which you have to interact, and once approved there, automatically is updated into everything which is depending on the JSON schema. Here you can see that's an example. I don't want to get into it, but it's the ability that you have if you are contributing of checking yourself if the standard is compliant, if it's properly documented, and you have to do more works to be accepted. Okay. And these are all the process for validation. These are the steps for validating a JSON schema. As you can see, there are the red parts are which are the automatic ones. We are close to be fully automatic, not yet. We have two steps, which is the check the adoption of in the market about the standard submitted, and if there are open and adopted regulations. So this is something that for the time being is only manual, but we try to do automatically as soon as we can. Okay. And let me go right now to just a quick review about this data model, and let me share the screen. Let me go here. I guess that you are going to see. Let's go first to the. I guess that you are seeing my screen with the browser. Okay. And what you see is the front end of the GitHub repository. You see here just 6 domains, because GitHub, which is our front end platform, only allows this, but there are many others. So in fact, if you go to the main repository, this is the Umbrella repository, and go here, you can see the different domains here. Okay. If we go to the smart cities domain, you can see that there are very different subjects: building, parking, parks and gardens, sports, which is rather new, street lighting, so on, so on. And if we get into any of this, like urban mobility, you can have different folders with different data models inside. So let's go for one, which is this one. Yeah, public transport. And what you can see, this is the schema. Okay, the README is generated automatically as well. Okay, and this schema is defining whatever is in this schema. Okay, which is about public transport routes and the different elements. So trusting on this, you can create a specification. Let me go for one specification. Let me go to a different domain like energy. Let me go here. We have domain of energy, the subject of energy, and we have just, let me go to the main branch. And here what we have is the same. And here in the documentation, we can go for the new specification format. Okay, you can see here, these are the properties. This is quite extensive. This is what I've explained. This is the technical description into YAML format. Okay, so you can have all the very technical details if you wish, but you can, okay, collapse this. And you have the example payloads for understanding the different versions of the platform and so on. And let me go now to the front end, which is the site not for developers but more for users. Here what you have is just several resources available. Imagine that you are willing to create a new data model, and you need to know if there is anything across the different data models related with okay, that's energy. If we click here energy, then automatically it's filter all the elements that somehow in the domain name or in the definition of the property is related with energy. We have 3 pages. Go for some of this, and if we click here, we go directly to the JSON schema that we see below, before. Okay, and we have all the technical details that we are willing. Another interesting resource here is the database of descriptions. This database allows you to check in any domain it's something described about any element. So if there is any description talking about roads, okay, we can find out that there is cloud flow observed about road segment, and so on. And there are many properties which are talking about roads, okay, that maybe is our interest. And with this, we can create a data model, or we can visit, or whatever, okay? We can check the road, or we can go directly for the name of the property. Bear in mind that temperature, okay. If we put just the beginning, we can find out all the properties which in somehow are referring to temperature, okay? We have also, if you don't want to visit this continuously, you can subscribe to a general list for the different domains. You can put your email and you are updated once a week, so we are not giving you. And here you have the news. The news are everything was happening here into the initiative. So yesterday we updated the contribution manual, and we are creating automatically the specification. These are the news, and these news are sent to you whenever once a week. Okay, so French translation available, Spanish translation, new specification. So everything was happening into the initiative. You can browse here, or just subscribe to the newsletter. It is also true that we have here a contribution manual. So if you are willing to collaborate, you have just a contribution manual explaining to you what do you need for accomplishing a full data model. Okay. Let me go back. Yeah. And other service is just here, the data models contribution mapping, which is allowing you to test your schema, and it's explaining to you how to do it and the technical parameters for doing it. Okay, so let me go back to the presentation with the last updates, which is in terms of smart cities, there is a new subject for ports, okay, which is very related with smart cities, definitely, but maybe because of some of the properties could be also related with the smart destinations. Smart destinations, meaning the tourism. It is also true that we are updating the context NGSI-LD. Now it's automatically, whenever there is a new data model, this context, which is available for all the platform resources, is updated automatically. We are working on the smart buildings ontology vocabulary with other organizations, and or adapting the common information model for energy, or adopting the semantic regulation for tourism 178503. Okay. We have many pending new data models for the water domain regarding consumption, distribution, treatment, and we are working on the digital twin approach regarding the sensoring and the actuators. So not only we have currently the sensoring quite populated with data models, but actuator is a different matter, and it's quite relevant for the digital twins. We have also some contributions into smart aeronautics, and there is new pending data models on agri-food. So there is an extensive activity around this. So with this, I'm finishing my part of the presentation. I'm just summarizing that we are into an open initiative, which is providing you with anything you need for sharing information across different domains in a consistent and agile way. And now let me pass the floor to my colleague Abhay, who is going to be the presenter for this last part, in which he is telling us about the practical use in smart cities. Okay. Thank you very much. And if you want to make any question, you have the chat available for this kind of things. Okay, thank you.